Sorry, I just like the music. I just let it play. I hadn't forgotten, Ben. I was completely connected. That music means it's Free Speech Fridays. Time to get a couple of people who don't mind saying what they think. And boy, we've had some people already on the show this morning who don't mind saying what they think, including Shane Jones, Robert Patman, and Jim the Moron. But then we just chew over the events of the week. With us today, my old mate, former journalist, PR, business lobbyist, television producer, Mark Champion out of Dunedin. How are you, Mark?
I'm well, Sean. How are you?
All right, we're almost there. We're almost at the Vinegar Strike. And Maurice Williamson from the city that is going to have congestion charges. No one saw that woke BS coming from Wayne Brown, but it's here, right, Maurice?
It's coming definitely to a city nearby you.
All right, thank you both for joining me. What a week we have had. Look, I just want to start with the congestion charge. What is it with this Wayne Brown guy? I thought that'd be the last thing he's into. So you're just going to tax your citizens out of your city, Maurice?
No, look, Sean, I'm sorry, but I'm a big fan of it. I think that when you have a very limited supply of a product and you have huge demand to use it, then you have to price regulate it so that people will either change their behaviour or actually not do the event. No,
getting around the city you live in is not a product, Maurice.
I'm sorry, it is actually. People can choose different time of day, and we can, by the way, Sean, the real gains that are made is if you're a tradie charging your time out at $80 an hour and are stuck in the bloody traffic for over an hour, you think paying $5 is not worth it to get there quick?
All right, okay, I hear you. Mark, would it ever work in Dunedin?
Well, look, 3 cars in a tunnel in Mount Vic is congestion to Wellington. This really is about freeing up business, and it's an enabling piece of legislation, which will mean that people can choose, and the tradespeople, the business of the city will have a better chance of manoeuvring around, paying a small charge, and not wasting an hour in traffic.
Correct, absolutely correct.
And what about the people who can't afford it?
They travel outside of those towns.
Well, okay.
Yes,
I just find this. I'm sorry, Sean, I just find this philosophically amazing. A new tax, and you're all over it, Maurice.
Absolutely. Think about go to Air New Zealand's website today and have a look at a flight Auckland-Wellington. At off-peak times, you'll be paying $150 less for the exact same seat, because they have got to try and regulate the volumes and get you to move your time of day. If you're going to have inability to build a whole lot more motorways because the land is just not available, the motorway is jammed. I came out of the headquarters of the council the other night and I pressed the GPS to go home. It says 1 hour and 23. It's normally a 15-minute run. Now, if you don't think your time for an hour and 23 down to 15 minutes is not worth $5, God, if a helicopter had been above me with grabbers and said, I'll drop you home in 10 minutes for $25, I'd have gladly paid it.
Yep. All right. Okay. And it was almost unanimous.
One more thing.
Yep.
No, one more thing for the greenies.
Yep.
One of the worst contributors to pollution and greenhouse gas emissions is traffic that's locked, blocked, stopped and going nowhere.
Yep.
Get that traffic flowing and you dramatically reduce your congestion, your stuff going into the atmosphere.
All right. Oh, great. Great to hear you, environmentalist, tax advocate.
Yeah, I've never been known as a great greenie.
The wonders never cease.
Come on, Jordan, next question.
Okay, next thing. Have you,
It's getting silly now, right? It's getting really silly.
I have this vision, you know, those memes of Hitler in the bunker, you know, and they use different words. I have a version of that, and it's the Hamas leadership underneath a hospital in Gaza somewhere going, you know, look, Effendi, it's fantastic. The Mayor of Christchurch has come out calling for the ceasefire. Tory Whanau has left the graffiti up in Wellington. Who are these local body politicians who think that anyone outside of their circle jerk of virtue signalling gives a toss what we think, Mark?
Sorry, I didn't quite follow your logic there, Sean.
Well, the logic is that we have all these mayors and local people saying ceasefire now and Hamas and a whole lot of pimply-faced university students who want to get laid picking up, a Palestinian flag from the Union, thinking that it matters to the actual conflict what anyone in New Zealand says or thinks.
Look, you're the only one listening to them. I mean, sensible politicians like Maurice Williamson introducing congestion charging in Auckland. These are the issues that we need to be behind. We've got our own country fixed. This one, really, I mean, it would be a miracle if this conflict ever ended.
Yeah.
Correct.
Actually,
Yeah.
actually that's a good point, Mark. Yeah.
There is one interesting thing about our local politicians. I found it really, really interesting that some of the Greens that are out there that are actually themselves gay, but also very, very in favour of gay rights, are out there backing the Palestinians and the Iranians and so on, who are actually putting gay people to death in the village square because it's such an evil practice. You think, and where's the duplicity in this?
Yeah. Mark, you've been a long-time observer of politics and stuff. It's an article of faith for the left, though, is it, that you're pro-Palestinian? It has been for years.
Yes, I think so. I think it's connected to power, and the Israelis hold the power in that area, backed up by Western leaders, and I think that it's a kind of another minority cause. But it goes so much deeper than that. I mean, it's Arab versus Jewish folk. It's historic. It's a land conflict, and it's so much more than the way it's been painted.
Yeah, and it's Black Lives Matters, and it's you're right. It's post-colonialism. It's identitarian politics, all wrapped up. I mean, the same people...
And it's a religious debate, and it goes back to the Crusades.
Well, we had the Israeli ambassador on, who is happy to talk to journalists. Just most mainstream journalists don't want to talk to him. He said today, get over the... he said to me earlier this week, get over the religion of this. And I don't know, I think it's very easy to buy into this narrative. But I'm a journalist, so I'm sceptical about it. He said, this is about civilization versus non-civilization. This is a battle for civilization. And I know that many commentators and many people in Britain are saying this is time to stop the sort of erosion of Western civilization and Christian values. Though it's more about...
I reckon Golda Meir, the Prime Minister of Israel from many years ago, I think she nailed it in one statement, and I loved it. She said, if the Arab lay down their arms, there would be no more war. But if Israel lays down its weapons, there would be no more Israel.
Yeah. Do you take sides on this, Mark? And it's hard not to. I think we've been programmed on the issue around the Holocaust our whole lives. There's a cultural thing that runs very deep for people, and I've got to say I'm surprised at how emotional I feel about this story as someone who tries to practice impartiality.
Yeah, look, I don't have difficulty being impartial on this because we've watched it for so long. I mean, the Arab-Israeli war, the Six-Day War, the Suez Crisis, the War of Attrition, the Yom Kippur War. I mean, this has been a constant factor in our lives. I mean, it was the only other constant factor until Queen Elizabeth II died. And I do think that if you're not involved in one side or the other, it is possible to be impartial, but there's also a degree of compassion that you've got to look at the human cost of the conflict. But the conflict is just centuries, millennium old. You know, it's and look, the sighting of Israel in 48, the British deal, it didn't create the problem, but it exacerbated it.
Focused
the problem was...
It focused it.
And of course, it became then about territory, and then about growing your territory, and then around maintaining it. And you know, the settlers and on the West Bank is all about that.
Yeah. And it's not really rational. I mean, this big thing, ceasefire now, is the global catch cry that someone's coordinated into it, like, you know, it's like a marketing campaign. I had a spirited discussion with Professor Robert Patman earlier, and I said, well, why isn't the catch cry release the hostages, because then you get a ceasefire as well? But we seem to have just leapt to, I just kicked you in the nuts. Ceasefire, please don't hit me back. Isn't that, it's kind of cry bullying, Maurice, almost.
Look, if you go back to the 6th of October and everyone was getting about their business and so on, and suddenly the next day, one of the most ghastly things, it was just ghastly what was launched against Israel. And then somehow there are people out there that say, well, they don't even want to talk about it. They never mention that. They just say, I've got to stop the bomb. Hang on. They didn't go in and start slaughtering women and children and raping and so on. It all occurred on the 7th of October. Well, I'm sorry, but if that's going to happen to my community, if I was living in New Zealand and someone was doing that to me from wherever, I would want to be firing back at them to get it to stop. And the idea that Hamas can hide in amongst the normal Gaza community under hospitals and schools but keep firing their rockets, it's just unacceptable. That if they wanted true peace, they should actually be trying to negotiate peace from a position of no rockets, no bombs, no raping. It's for me, I do feel quite passionate about it. It's how it got started on the 7th of October. And quite frankly, I think Israel's got a right to defend itself. And if the people that are firing at you are hiding in particular locations in order to use human shields so that you can't go after them, that's just going to have to be overcome.
Yeah. I just got to let you guys know, after 9 o'clock, we are going to be joined by Dr. Rand Hazou, who is the head of a group called Palestinians in Aotearoa Organising Committee that's commissioned some research that News Hub has published uncritically. He's going to join us after 9 o'clock. He also, works at the School of Humanities, Media and Creative Communications at Massey University. Guys, we'll take a break. More when we come back.